Thank you, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us through all 3 days, and particularly today on a nice day, and it was all teams. I have the great honor and distinction of kind of closing out the program, the IPA, with program processes and procedures, which some of us find really exciting, but maybe not everyone. Luckily, there's not that many slides. So I would say hold questions until the end. I will run through the slides. Jan and Nancy, but particularly Jan, will jump in as needed. Okay, so some of this might be a little bit of a review of things that have been mentioned. I will go through quickly. This program is enabled by a landscape scale restoration grant from the USDA Forest Service. The important thing about this grant is the program authorities allow cost sharing for plans, but not for practices. So that's why we were able to offer the financial incentive for the invasive plant control practice plans. But when it comes time to treatment, it'll be handled a different way. It's a collaborative effort across really 3 programs here in the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. The Forest Stewardship Program, which is my area, Urban and Community, which is Jan, and the Natural Areas, which of course is Nancy and her folks, including Madeline. 3 phases: the Invasive Plant Academy, of course, we're in it now. The Invasive Plant Control Practice Plans, which we are about to embark on, and then the contractor implemented treatment. And we hope to do this, we plan to do it for 2 years in a row, all 3 phases. We have created a web page where we are trying to put everything that anyone would need to know or want to know about the program. It's been mentioned several times that PDFs are going to eventually be posted from all the presentations. So it's a bit of a living document. We're continuing to build out as we go. But this URL, and perhaps it would be worth putting this in the chat again. This is the place to start for everything to do with the program. And I did want to mention real quickly about the different programs. People who have worked with a stewardship program, which we call WoodsWise here in Maine, are going to be more familiar with some of these processes. Folks that work with the urban, this is going to be different. These are not technically grants. So quick overview of what's on that website: the manual, which is the go-to place for all the details about the program. The manual appendices, which include all the various forms that are needed. Also in the appendices, there are many other things, list of the foresters and other resource professionals, example plans, the specs and checklist, which will be a great tool for making sure your plans are complete, flow diagrams, a couple which I will show you. There's a Find Your District Forester function in there, which is also on the Maine Forest Service website. That will be important when you prepare a plan, when it's all done and you need to submit it to the local district forester. If you're not familiar with that person, you'll need to find them and their contact information, and of course other stuff. Wanted to go over some of the detail out of the manual, definitely not all, but this might be key at this particular time, that who is an eligible landowner for this program. It includes private family woodland owners, municipalities, utility districts, soil and water conservation districts, educational institutions, land trusts, and other nonprofit entities. And when it comes time for the contractor applied treatment, there will be some geographic preference in those 8 counties, which is the former Maine biometrician who might be on the call here used to refer to them as the 8 baby counties, but really this the southern and westernmost part of the state.
And actually, it's the 8 baby counties plus, Andy, because you've got the coastal counties listed in there too.
Correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yeah, more than 8. The acreage limitations are that a parcel that's going to have a plan prepared for it must have at least 10 contiguous wooded acres, and that the ownership would be not more than 1,000 wooded acres cumulative statewide. I've already talked to quite a few people about this, and I just wanted to make sure that you folks coming out of this academy, if you're talking to potential clients, make sure there's at least 10 wooded acres on the parcel, and that in total across the state of Maine, they do not own more than 1,000 wooded acres. Wooded acres, not all acres. The applicants must include all the owned woodland in the contiguous parcel in the invasive plant control practice plan. Eligible landowners may apply concurrently for separate invasive plant control practice plans on separate non-contiguous parcels. So it is kind of parcel centric. Here's a flow diagram for the plan, the next phase of these invasive plant control practice plans. At the top, you see the eligible landowners that are interested, and you also see the foresters and other resource professionals, you folks that are in the program here. And it's a two-way street. You might contact somebody that you know of that would be interested, or and most of the interest we're getting now is from landowners who are calling up, and we're directing them to that list on the website to find out who is potentially going to be able to prepare plans. A good point to mention now is that the transaction there is strictly between the landowner and the plan preparer as far as timing, price, and whatever, as long as it fits within the overall timeline. Once the landowner has come to some understanding with a plan preparer, they'll apply. We understand it's a tight window, kind of starting in an hour until the 31st, but a lot of folks have been doing the groundwork, and hopefully you've heard from some people already. We get the applications. We do not know yet if we'll be able to fund all the applications we get in year one. There's a possibility of having to do some ranking, and if that's the case, some folks may have to wait for the next round next year. But if we can do it, we will fund all the eligible parcels this year, and if that's the case, then your plan preparer goes ahead and prepares the plan consistent with guidelines and also with landowner goals and objectives. So those things need to all work together. The landowner does pay the FORP up front for the plan. Then the completed plan and some claim for reimbursement forms go to the Maine Forest Service District Forester, who will review for completeness. There will be some Maine Natural Areas oversight on some of these as well, especially for first-time plan preparers, which essentially everybody is. Once approved, then between Maine Forest Service and the state accounting, we process the claim for reimbursement, and a check is issued, although in some cases it might be an electronic funds transfer. Just to manage expectations, it can take 4 to 6 weeks from the time that the plan is submitted until a check arrives. District foresters have many things to do, including approving these plans. So that can take a bit of time. And then even once things get over into the state accounting office, they don't process these every day. So just to let you know, those reimbursements will arrive, but they don't come overnight. If there's something about the plan that's not consistent or incomplete, there might be some back and forth between the district forester and the plan preparer to get it right before it's considered complete.
Andy, before you move on, sorry, just to reiterate Andy's point that, you know, we hope to be able to fund every application that we receive this year. We do have roughly $85,000 in the grant funds to support this phase of the program, and that is for both years of the planning. but I do believe that that will carry us a long way through this part of the project. And then just again to reiterate, this is consistent with how the cities and towns are familiar with working with the Project Canopy program, that the landowner is the applicant, and that we only will reimburse for the plan after the applicant shows that the consultant has been paid and that the plan has met with our specs and approved.
Okay, good. Thank you,
Thanks.
Jan. Just to put some dates onto that flow chart with a timeline, the applications for 2021 essentially is now until May 31st, and that is just to apply for the plans. That's not to finish the plans. And this, of course, is separate from the mini plans that you're doing as part of the academy. We will get the approval letters out as quickly as we can, and we don't think it'll take any longer than the second week in June, because really we want folks to get going on the planning. The field work must be completed between approval. Please don't start until you see that letter. And October 1st is the end of the field season as far as these are concerned. The plans themselves are due. You can send them in anytime that they're complete, but no later than November 1st. So there's a little additional month to kind of finish up paperwork or whatever, some of the mapping situations that folks have been dealing with here. But October 1st would be the deadline for completing the field work, actually surveying the acres. We will process reimbursements on a rolling basis, so if they're done and complete in sooner, we won't have to batch those up. We'll take them as they come. There'll be a separate treatment application ranking period. Those dates will be announced. It'll be later in the fall. Clearly would have to be after November 1st, unless we happen to get all the plans out there done before then. But contractor applied treatments really won't be feasible for those to start until 2022. There'll be another timeline for that, which I'm not covering now because we haven't really established it. I wanted to say something about the acres to be surveyed or searched, kind of using those words a little bit interchangeably here. And Nancy, you can correct me if I'm not doing that, if I shouldn't do that. But the minimum required field survey would be including the highly probable areas on the parcel, as well as some survey in less likely areas. And I think Nancy's already covered that whole process of identifying highly probable areas, but you also do want to do some level of checking in less likely areas just to make sure. Main natural area program field work, folks who have done similar plans suggests that a FORP with a good familiarity with invasive plants can expect to survey a maximum of 100 to 250 acres a day. The lower end of that range would be expected for properties that are badly infested, because obviously there's more data to record. The higher end can be expected for lightly infested properties with less data to record. Here is a chart. This is in the manual. And by the way, everything I'm covering here is also in the manual, with these minimum survey efforts that are expected of plans based on the acreage and whether there's a low, medium, or high level of infestation. So this can both guide your estimates for clients, and also is what we'll be looking for in the plans themselves, that you have spent at least this much time on the various parcels. And of course, it's perfectly fine to take longer. And this, I'm sure this will play into your arrangements for compensation, but again, that is between you and your clients. Just some examples: property with 100 eligible acres should budget at least a day. Could be more if it's badly infested, and there will probably be some way to tell that ahead of time based on the landowner's knowledge, or perhaps your knowledge of that part of the world. With 50 eligible acres, you might expect to spend a half day. For larger properties, at least 10 hours, and these are minimums. As we mentioned, you can always do more. Depends on topography. Quite clearly, if you haven't done this sort of survey work before, it'll probably take longer the first time. So the application reimbursement, I mentioned an application approval letter will be issued, work can begin, plan is prepared, it's approved and paid for up front by the landowner, plan is prepared, submitted to the local district forester with a claim for payment form, a proof of payment form, which is also on the website, and a copy of the plan preparer's invoice marked paid. Those are three critical pieces in order to process those claims for payment. With proof of payment, there's a little more to that, but I think rather than go into that now, when there's questions about that, be happy to answer them at that time. District Forester approves the plan. Maine Forest Service here in Harlow will process the reimbursement claim, and the state treasurer actually issues the check. If folks are already set up for electronic funds transfer with the state, it's likely they will get it that way. Again, forms are on the website and also in the manual appendices. And here are the links for that. And it could be that it would be useful to put those in the chat. I might dare to see if I can click on this and see if it will come up. Is everybody seeing the web page?
Yep.
Okay. So just, again, if you haven't spent time looking at this, there's general information. A lot of the important documents and forms are right here. There is the list of the folks that can prepare plans, and within a few days, this will not say provisional. This will say just eligible invasive plant control practice plan preparers based on you folks having completed this program. There's a set of landowner instructions that you can pass on to clients that kind of, for them, encapsulates this whole process that I've been talking about. Here's the application form. It's one page. It's a fillable PDF. It does have to be signed. It does need to have the name of the plan preparer on it to be considered complete. This is the form I talked about briefly as a way to show proof of payment, and it's an affidavit. Actual proof of payment would be something from the bank, like a canceled check on both sides or a bank statement. Since those are often not easy to get a hold of in a timely way, there's another form that can be filled out by the plan preparer and by the landowner, and they both sign saying, yes, funds were transferred. The underlying message here is that the plans do need to be paid for up front. This is a reimbursement program, not an outright grant. And then the form that actually acts as the invoice to get your reimbursement is called the claim for payment. Only other thing I want to point out here is that this is the page with the resources for you folks. And when you go there, you'll see lots of stuff. The manual appendices, example plans, et cetera, et cetera. Here's that link to finding your Maine Forest Service district foresters and much more stuff.
Yeah, many of you have asked about the PDFs of the slides, which we do intend to post all of those as well, but those recordings that we have available from day 1 and day 2 are there, links to YouTube sites, and it's our intent with all of these to have them broken out and the recordings available for your review.
Okay. Just to say a little bit about the treatment funding, and it's a little bit, I think I've kind of mentioned it, but that there will be a separate application to Maine Forest Service for treatment funding. There will definitely be evaluation and ranking with that preference to those particular counties. If it's funded, then Maine Forest Service will contract with an applicator or practitioner to apply the treatments. There will be a meeting with the landowners. There'll be permissions, agreement signed. The treatment will take place. Maine Forest Service will make the payment to the contractor for that treatment. So essentially no cost to the landowner for this. However, the landowner is not going to be able to choose their contractor other than to say yes or no. But as far as I don't believe they'll have to have the menu of contractors to choose from. But it will be treatment that is based on their plan. And it needs to be based, you need, in order to apply, I should have said that from the beginning, landowners with approved IPCPPs can apply for the treatment phase. If it's not funded, you can hold on and try again the following year, or there will be other ways to implement, and some landowners may choose to do that anyway. They may want to do it on their own. They may have the means either to do it themselves or to basically hire an applicator of their choice on their own. We don't have a formal connection to NRCS yet, but we've brought it up to some of them. And at some point, we do expect that people with these IPCPPs can go to their local USDA service center and will get kind of an easier in to the process of getting EQIP funds. But that has not been fully determined yet. For the treatments that come through our program, Maine Forest Service will monitor treatments within a year. We're also asking the landowners to participate in that monitoring and to maintain the practice, which in this case simply means don't convert the woodland. Don't suddenly change your mind and decide to sell off house lots.
Andy,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to address a question that came up in the chat, which I did answer, but I think this is the appropriate place to address that with the whole group. So Steve Brook asked the question, he has a client that has 40-acre property, only wants 4 or 5 acres of common reed and a freshwater marsh on the lot treated. Will they qualify? And then a follow-up from him, and how would we know that with only that one form with no maps sent in to us? So my response to that, and Andy, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, or Nancy, but that wood lot would qualify for the invasive plant practice or control practice plan, but that plan would then be how we would identify where treatment is to be directed, and based on the recommendations of that plan, focused on only that common reed in the marsh, we would likely identify that as lower priority for the treatment component of this program. Does that make sense?
Yes, and yeah, keep in mind that we do believe that there's value to the plans, even if it doesn't qualify for treatment through the program. At least it will help, basically identify the problem and some strategies to deal with it. However, because this is from the USDA Forest Service, I mean, there's a focus on woodlands here. And I think that in the ranking for treatment, something that is not directly affecting the woods would probably rank out lower. However, that's not a definite yet. There's still time for discussion on that, I think.
Yes, but to Steve's follow-up point, then again, we certainly can and will put out something to articulate that these are 2 separate phases. I felt like that was pretty clear, but I know, both phases were advertised in the press release that went out. So we will follow up with that and articulate that for folks. Thanks for making that point, Steve.
Okay. I think we're getting close to the end of this, to the slideshow. Just a note, contractor applied treatments, practitioners interested in bidding on, and that should be providing treatment application, should contact Maine Forest Service, and Jan Santerre will be the contact person for that. If you just kind of want to get your name on the list for when the RFP goes out, that would be the person to contact. for those of you who are also practitioners or applicators. So I couldn't close it out without at least one picture, and being a forester and having spent a lot of time in and around skidders, I just thought I would put up the picture of the skidder mounted, but pointing out this is only one way to do it, not the only way. And certainly not saying it's the only way, but sometimes you got to get out the bigger tools. So that's all I have in the slideshow, and I'm happy to stop sharing as soon as I find that button.
We do have some questions popping up. So Sherry Bernal asks if there will be funding beyond the 2 years within this grant. Right now, Sherry, what we have is funding through the Landscape Scale Restoration Program through 2023, and that's through June of 23. So, you know, we only have existing funding for this program through that point in time. It's anticipated that we will likely extend this grant. If we haven't spent all the money at that point, we certainly will. And so that would go through the, you know, at least the calendar year of 23. And if we show success, I anticipate also that this is something that we're going to try to institutionalize with the Maine Forest Service in collaboration with the Natural Areas Program. Again, if we're able to demonstrate success. And that's the whole point. We want to make a difference on the ground. So
I would just add that if anyone, you know, so in order to get more funding, you know, we want to be able to show that there's demand for the program, that landowners are willing to pay for these plans, and that, you know, it's probably obvious to all of us that there's a problem, there's an invasive plant problem. So, you know, if we get lots of applications, that's terrific, even if we can't fund them all, because it demonstrates to the funding sources that, hey, you know, landowners are getting in line to get these plants. And I think it'll be great to show them our the strong interest from landowners.
Okay, yes, and we certainly hope that somebody will take a look at this program and say, this is a good program, this needs to keep going, because nobody's under the illusion that in 2 to 3 years we'll have knocked invasive plants out of Maine. This is just a start, really. Better to do something than nothing, but we hope that we can continue doing this. So I'm seeing some of these questions in the chat. And if someone applies for treatment, or just will the state's contractor treat everything identified or just a priority subset of management? Thinking of the Little River Preserve Field Site in Gorham. I think that some of this will be addressed in the application for treatment. Your plan may show multiple areas where you can work, but you, as a landowner, they may decide, well, and really there's supposed to be a strategy in there, so they may determine that we only want to tackle parts 1 and 2 of our overall strategy at a given time. So there'll be a separate application. I mean, you could apply to do everything in your plan, depending on the cost of that. It may or may not be able to be funded. So some of this is still to be determined. Any other thoughts on that, Jan or Nancy?
I agree. I think some of this is still to be determined. It's a good question, Andrew. It might be the sort of thing where at the time of applying for treatment, you know, the landowner needs to rank what they want to do, something like that. I don't know.
I think that's a good point, Nancy. And I think, you know, even beyond that, the second funding round, which is for the treatment, in each of those funded projects, there will be, you know, a contract between the state and that landowner for what is happening at the time of treatment. So there's an opportunity there to refine what ends up getting treated at that time.
Okay. Yeah, Sammy asks, actually question for other participants, how are you structuring your contracts with clients? So obviously that's not for us to answer. That's for you folks to, if you want to share your thoughts and best practices, that's fine. Jake Meyer asks, is there a reason why the application time for landowners is so short? And the answer to that question is yes. So moving on to the next question. We were kind of threading the needle here because we needed to have folks who'd gone through the academy, and once they'd been through the academy and understood what was involved in one of these plans, to still be willing to provide them. And at the same time, we want to give people plenty of field season to work with. And at the same time, we have to do this as a batch instead of a rolling application so that we know if we have enough money. So we're kind of having to pull a few things together here, and understanding that it's a short time period, but also understanding that if a landowner is not quite ready to jump in now, there will be a next year. So it may be also that a landowner with multiple parcels would want to just apply for one this year to sort of test drive it for themselves and come back next year with other parcels. So hopefully that helps, Jake.
So Maggie asks, and this is a question that I think a lot of people have been wondering about, does the completion of a plan and submission for the funding of that plan automatically enroll you in the treatment round? And no, it does not. Once that plan is the plan that will guide us in the ranking of what treatments are selected, but you are not automatically enrolled, and there will be another application form that will need to be completed at that time. And that form is not yet available.
I can take the second part of Maggie's questions.
Okay.
A question about landowners with plans not funded through this program or plans done by the Maine Natural Areas Program in the past. The Maine Natural Areas Program, as well as our partners at 4 soil and water conservation districts, have been for some years now preparing very similar plans for producers in certain counties in Maine. And so it has been decided that those plans prepared by the Maine Natural Areas Program or the soil and water conservation districts may also apply for the treatment funding. So those are the plans which have those are the plans for which a decision has been made. Maggie, if there are other plans that are out there, I guess I would defer to Jan and Andy. It might be sort of thing that we could consider on a case by case basis. I don't know. What do you think, Jan and Andy?
Yeah, I think case by case, but if there's a lot of applications for treatment, that may have to play into the ranking. That if one that came through our, the full process versus something else. But again, a lot depends on how many people apply for what treatments and how that fits into that part of the grant budget.
Since I know everybody's wondering, we've said what's available for the planning phase right now with the grant funding that we have and what we've budgeted for the treatment phase. That's $150,000. So knowing the cost of treatment, it's not going to take us that far. It was as much as we felt we could squeeze out of the funders without looking completely insane.
Okay. So the next question about, is there going to be, I assume that's a list on the Forest Service website for this program versus the list I am on now, Steve Brook? I'm not sure what list you're on now, so not exactly certain how to answer this.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this. I took the UMass program similar to these guys in 2013, so I've got quite a clientele base, and they've seen this stuff in the newspaper, and they're coming after me left and right. So I'm trying to get a heads up on how to just deal directly with these folks and what to tell them. So I understand the process, but I don't think they're all hot and heavy, and they think everything's going to get applied for and all the money's going to come to them. So right now, I mean, I think I'm listed like every other applicator in certain things. Like if I do emerald ash borer or hemlock woolly adelgid, that list. I think there's a list that's already on the website for people who have been doing this, like myself. Now we have this program. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point, Steve, which is that so the Board of Pesticide Control maintains a list of folks who opted in to be listed as invasive plant service providers. The Maine Natural Areas Program also maintains a list of folks who opted in as non-herbicide or herbicide plus providers. And
Correct.
so, yeah, there are additional lists for treatment providers. So this is separate from plan preparers. The list for this program right now that's on the Maine Foresters website is for plan preparers. So that's separate and different than these two lists, which are for treatment providers. So yes, you may be listed in two places. The list that I'm showing here on the screen, you can opt out if you don't want to be listed.
No.
Yeah, and so for those of you who are now, in this program who may not be listed, please go to these websites they each list how you would get listed. And I refer people to these lists all the time. I get lots of phone calls from people wanting help treating things. So if you are a treatment provider and you want to be listed on these lists, please let me know for list 2 here, and please let the Board of Pesticide Control know for their list.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yep.
I think
I would.
Go ahead, Jan.
Sorry, I was gonna just say, we've asked for folks that want to be notified when the bid goes out for the treatment phase of this program to contact me. And certainly you can do that. I would anticipate that probably that bid will be advertised on those lists as well. Nancy, would you?
That makes sense to me, Jan.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't inform me that you want to be notified when that goes out, you'll probably get it anyway.
Thank you.
So Rob Codio says, so the plan for treatment after the management plan written is separate. Maybe, or you may apply for just the treatment as it's in your plan, or that may be a subset. But when it comes down to treatment time, there will be a more specific agreement between Maine Forest Service and the landowner, kind of a permission to go ahead and do this. And I'm not as familiar with how contracts with applicators work, but those contracts, which the landowner will not actually be a party to, but they're going to include a lot of detail about what gets done and where and when. And nobody's disagreeing with me, so let's move on. All right. As a plan writer for a landowner or customer of mine, my plan gets approved. Does the plan writer have a say in the applicator that treats his customer? Or can we monitor the application? Low bid doesn't always mean best results. And that's from Ron Lemin. Totally agree. Low bid is not always the best result. That'll be part of the bidding process for the contractor. But the answer to the first question is not really. At least not as we can envision it now. There'll be some idea of trying to batch up treatments for efficiency for a given applicator. It does kind of bring up the situation, and this goes to Steve Brooks' comment. If folks that are part of this academy are also applicators or practitioners, as I call them, and you have a client list that you're already working with them, it might not actually be this program might not be for you, because we cannot say to the landowner, yes, you can work with the contractor of your choice. It has to be somebody who's gone through our bid process, is willing to do that, and we'll have to take on more than just this lot or that lot. So that could back you up to thinking, will this plan even be of use, an IPCPP? And that's a separate question. We hope that people will find these plans of value, even if they don't apply for the treatment. That's might be for some of you to judge whether these plans will help you in your businesses, you know, with folks that you're already doing the treatment for. But no, we can't say, yeah, for sure who will apply the treatment on a given wood lot.
There's a number of questions here about the contractor applied treatments, and I mean, I think the state bidding process is quite cumbersome, but the way we envision this is that multiple contractors will be awarded the bid. There's no one contractor that's going to be able to conduct this work statewide. How that's going to be broken out remains to be determined at this point, but I encourage all of you to submit bids and based on, and we may reach out to you before we develop the bid in helping to structure that so that it is most sensible and makes it easy for you to bid on as well. So anticipate that, you know, a number of you that I know are doing this work and who are interested in doing this work may hear from us as we begin to structure that bid. And that will begin very shortly. The state bidding process can take weeks to months. So we hope to have much of this nailed down by the time that these plans are coming in so that the transition into the next phase of the program is seamless. I hope that allays some of your concerns about that next phase of the program.
I want to just circle back and address, there was a specific comment regarding, you know, wanting to make sure that the landowner has had a chance to sign off on what's going to be happening on their property. And Andy referenced this, but there's going to be a document like that. So there's going to have to be a meeting of the minds where we have the landowner and the contractor and, you know, potentially the plan preparer or a representative from Maine Forest Service we make sure that the landowner is on the same page as the contractor. So we have allowed for that, and we have a form for that. So in addition to the contract that will be between the contractor and the Maine Forest Service, there will also be a check-in to make sure that the landowner, you know, understands what they are signing off on.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a nitty-gritty question that can be answered quickly. Kyle asked about is it safe to say that landowner applications for plans can be sent via email? The 31st is Memorial Day, so how will that look? Andy, do you want to field that one?
Yes, you can send them via email, and is the 31st the Monday? Yeah, it is. Okay. So, you know, emails will have date stamps on them. If there's a postmark before the 31st and it shows up on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think we can probably consider it. But I would encourage folks to use electronic means. Everything is on the application. It directs everything to forestinfo@maine.gov. Nobody will be manning that or personing that on the 31st, but we'll be in on June 1st, and we'll work through everything that comes in. Just looking to see if there's any other short answer questions.
Sherry Bernal has a question here. Do old fields with heavy shrub cover count as woodland? Small, less than 5-acre fields or patch cuts in an otherwise wooded area are often heavily invaded as they grow up through the old field stage. Basically, what stage is the cutoff between field and woodland?
Oh, I'm sure there's a definition somewhere. We don't have one in our program manual specifically. I'm going to say professional judgment, and also what is the landowner's intent there. It's definitely that those acres can be included in the plan. They can be surveyed because they're likely the cause of the infestation into the adjacent woods. If the intent of the landowner is to let that continue to be woods, then, or to continue growing up into being woods, then that's the way to look at it. if on the other hand, they really want to reclaim the field. And I guess this is probably pushing through the treatment question, which again, we don't really have a good answer for, whether we pay for treatments in those sort of transitional areas. That might have to be, it's a good one to jot down for further discussion. I see Nancy jotting, I think. Nodding and jotting, okay.
We've had a couple questions here about if a landowner pays for a plan out of pocket, can they still be approved by the district forester and apply for funding later? And if Maren, I understand your question, you're directing that towards the treatment funding. If they haven't gone through the application process for the plan, they couldn't go through with that and then get funding later if they haven't completed that application. But they could have their district forester approve that plan that was not cost shared and still qualify for the treatment round. Yes.
And I think that also answers Maggie's question that we didn't get to earlier. So thanks, Jan. I was going to bring that up.
Okay. I understand everybody's interest in wanting to know how the treatment phase is going to work. And I guess the best answer I can give now is that we will address it just as quick as we can to get the information out there. However, there's a couple other things that we really are going to be focusing on first, finishing up the IPA and fielding all the plan applications. So if there's landowners on the fence, and really it depends to them on how they feel about the treatment, then again, maybe they'll want to wait until year 2 and see how things go. We'd love to say that we'll be all things to all people, but we know that's not true. And for some folks, the best course of action right now may be, as far as the program goes, would be to hold off until everyone's been through one round. On the other hand, I think for a lot of folks, just getting a plan to know, literally, get a good picture of what their issues are, will have value in and of itself, regardless of, whether there's a program funding for treatment. So we're hoping there's still plenty of interest in the plans. And just as soon as we have more answers about the treatment phase, we will get the word out, particularly to the folks who are on our FORP list.
At this time, I want to make sure that we share again the link to the credit request form. So Andy, if you have that handy, it'd be great to share that in the chat. The other thing that we want to be sure to share before folks go anywhere is our IPA evaluation form. So we really, really, really want your feedback on this program, both so that we can improve it for next year and also so that we can brag about it to the U.S. Forest Service, who has funded us. And so if you can say specifically, the ways that the Academy has helped to prepare you and the things about it that were super useful, that would be terrific, so that we can understand that and keep doing that, and also so that we can demonstrate that to our funders so that they will keep funding us. So we will be posting a link to the evaluation form in the chat.
Coming right up.
Terrific. And Jan, it probably would be a good idea to send that link, tomorrow or something, in case anybody logged off, to make sure that that folks have it. So there's the credit request form, and we also are going to have an evaluation form in just a minute. So that's that. I wanted to say that several people have, suggested that having some more IMAP tutorial time would be good. And so I'm going to put out there a tentative idea for some IMAP office hours that Maddie or myself might be able to staff. And so I'm just kind of curious. This is going to be informal, but if folks have ideas for what time of day, whether you'd rather have IMAP office hours first thing in the morning, or whether you'd rather have them in the late afternoon, or whatever, let me know, so that we can schedule some of those. I guess without, if I don't hear back, I'll just schedule them. I'll schedule a few at different times, and advertise those to you all via email. And I had a request to demonstrate something on IMAP invasives, that I'll do. I will say IMAP has been kind of sluggish today. I don't know if it's behaving any better right now, but so I'll hold off on doing that until we sort of conclude, and that way people can get off the call if they're not interested in that. And that's kind of the list of things I had to cover. So somebody has asked about who gets the mini plans. I will share again the PowerPoint with information about the mini plans, like how to turn in your mini plan. So bear with me here while I share this screen, but we're going to be turning those into Maddie. And so if I can find the share slide. Yeah. So we are asking you to reduce the total number of files and file size, please. There's actually a limit. We can't receive files that are more than, I want to say 50 emails that have more than 50 megabytes. So please don't send files that are that large. Please reduce your file sizes and number of files. Use a file naming convention as described here. So last name, first name, underscore town of site plan, last name, first name, underscore town of site maps, and email them to Maddie Eberly at madeline.eberly@maine.gov. And those are due Friday. So I'll leave that up for just a second so folks can write down Madeline's email, and I'll shut up. Andy and Jan, are there questions coming in?
There was one from Eric Grove. He would like to know how we scored funding dollars parallel to NRCS, and I don't have enough familiarity with that to be able to answer that question.
Same. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any insight into that process. Well, what I can say is that NRCS is often looking at multiple different kinds of resource concerns on the same property at the same time. We're really only looking at invasive plants, and so that's a big difference right there. And I know that within the NRCS framework, sometimes properties where they're trying to do multiple things all at once, they score higher. Whereas, for this process, everybody's trying to do the same thing, which is manage invasive plants. So it may be somewhat of a more level playing field in that sense, although obviously we're going to have to, as Jan said, 150K is only going to go so far in 2 rounds of treatment. So we're going to have to prioritize and rank the applications for treatment in all likelihood.
I guess my comment is that when you say parallel to NRCS, it makes it sound equal, but it's far from that. The money we got for this is a sort of a rounding error for NRCS.
True.
There's some questions about getting in the mini plans. What time Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as it's there when we show up on Monday, I think you're going to be okay. Don't but get it for your own sanity. Don't do it over the weekend, right? Get it done on Friday. Be done with it.
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, folks. Just get it done.
Yeah. David asks about data in IMAP, meaning our survey points. Yes, as well as the surveyed area, the searched area in IMAP. That is an important thing to make sure that you have on a map as well as in IMAP. And if you had any infestations of invasive plants that were larger than like a clump of invasive plants, then you would want to have polygons or shapes present in IMAP also. Okay, Brenda, I've noted your request for a potential evening office hour session. Noted. I'm not promising that, but I think we can probably do that.
There are a number of people that have commented, Nancy, that office hours for IMAPs sounds like a great idea. And based on the number of questions and issues that people have had, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Just in case we missed anything in the chat, if somebody wanted to unmute or raise your hand and just speak, now's a good time.
I want to thank everybody for slugging through 3 rather long days, especially today being online all day. But I know I have learned a lot. Nancy did the majority of putting this agenda together and pulling the speakers together. So big kudos to you. I think you've done a fantastic job. And again, we've got that evaluation form up there in the chat. Please complete that. This is our first time doing this. It's a learning experience for all of us, but it is something that I know we're really excited about being able to offer. And, looking forward to next year when we get to run the program again. So any of your feedback helps us to build a better program for next year. So please do complete that evaluation form. I will most definitely be doing a follow-up email with all of that information again, because I know, people have had to drop out here a little bit early or, in various parts of the program. So we'll be sending you all of this again, and you'll probably be horribly sick of us by the end of the week as we continue to slog stuff at you. But thanks for sticking with us and your interest in moving forward with this program.
There's one specific question from Sherry Bruno, and maybe Nancy, you see that about a 4-year time frame for sample plans?
Yeah, so in the sample plans, I believe we had sort of a 5-year a timetable in a table form. I think we viewed that as the minimum that was acceptable for the plans. If there is a particular reason to go beyond that with your landowner and that site, I think that's fine. I think that the idea was to set, a minimum so that folks did indicate some detail on how treatment would best play out over time. So yeah, so I'm reviewing my checklist just to make sure that I'm consistent with what we've said. Going out to 5 years. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything in the manual that would prevent you from going out further, Sherry.
Yeah.
Question about Bpc credit forms. That are we sending out forms, Nancy, or we that's been done already, hasn't it?
Yeah, so in lieu of the paper forms, what Bpc asked us to do is have people fill out an online, what Bpc asked for, we're gathering via an online form. And so if you scroll up in the chat, Andy at 4:31 in the chat posted the link to the credit request form, which covers Bpc, SAF, as well as, I'm sorry, is it ISA credits or at least some information about that? Yeah. So that's where you can find that.
Yeah. And even the foresters, I would ask everyone to fill out that request form just as a cross check against our attendance lists.
And I'll send that again in that follow-up email too, in case you missed it in the chat.
Thanks, Jan. So folks, at this time, we don't see any raised hands right now. I don't see any additional questions, unless I'm missing something in the chat. I think we've got the questions. It's 4:41, and I feel that we've covered what we needed to cover today. Andy, Jan, any parting thoughts here?
Just one, and that is thank you, Nancy, because you are the head and the horns of this whole thing, the IPA. It's an incredible undertaking. And at this point, if we were in the room, I would ask for a round of applause. So virtual applause. Thank you
and
so
an
much.
IPA.
Woohoo! Cheers to that. We were talking about like shirts we could get made with like I love the IPA or something like that. Maybe in the future, maybe next year when we can all be in person. Thanks, Andy. Well, it's been it's been great to watch the program come together, and it'll be really fun when we can do it in person next year too. So the other thing is just tell your friends about the IPA and how great it was, and your colleagues, so that they sign up for next year, because we'd love to train more providers to do this.
And
Eric, the
hopefully
answer,
maybe we can meet you all in person in one place at some point. I mean, the one advantage to to having to do this online and not being able to get together in a room together is that we were able to train a whole lot more people in this first year than we were expecting to. So, but I think that's a great benefit, and I hope that maybe we can have a reunion and we can actually have get our shirts out and sign our shirts and have an IPA or whatever your drink of choice is. So, I mean I can't give enough applause to Nancy. Really fantastic job. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for your encouragement and participation.
I see one hand. Tim Basham, if you want to unmute yourself and speak, if you have a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You keep speaking, reading on the chat room. I can't see where I can find the credit form for that I participated. I don't see what you're talking about.
I'll send it to you, Tim.
All right, because thank you.
You got it.
All right, that's it.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think we did it.
Yeah.
just put the eval form in again.
Cool.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
I am going to demonstrate, if IMAP will permit it, I'm going to demonstrate use of the identify area tool. And this is only for like people who are really, feeling like they can handle this at this time. Please feel free to sign off. But somebody did want to understand how that tool worked. So I'm going to show it if IMAP will cooperate. So let me try reloading this page. Somebody noted that IMAP is very sluggish for them today too. So it may be that we can't do this, but I'm just going to try. I know Jake is trying to get the tool to work properly today and wasn't having any luck. So we'll see what happens here. All my buttons are grayed out. That's sad. The spinning wheel. Yeah, so normally you'd be able to click on this identify measure button, but nothing doing right now. So I don't think I'm going to be able to demonstrate this right now. So I'm going to stop. We'll do it in IMAP office hours. Rob, I was showing something that's on the regular computer rather than the phone app. Or I was trying to show something. Okay. I think I'm going to sign off. Jan, Andy, are we good? Ron, you got your hand raised. What can we do for you?
I submitted that credit form the first day. I assume that's the same one.
Same one. Yep.
Okay, good.
Exactamundo.
I didn't know if it was a different one or not.
No, same thing.
So that's all we have to do. The credits are taken care of if we submit.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab the data that they need and send it to them.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you guys. It's great. Everything was great. The
Thank
ship
you for
didn't
your
sink. We built it as
presentation.
we floated and it didn't sink. So.
Woohoo.
Yeah, we'll catch up, Nancy, after we decompress.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Great.
Very
I'm going to
good.
go ahead and log off. Yeah, the phone app has been horrible today. I guess maybe the interwebs were having a bad day today. So what can you do? I'm glad that our presentations all went smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all and good night.
So long.